Office Ops is excited to announce the launch of Tango Reserve. Today we will have our training and demo by Tara Diaz, who is the Service and Training Manager for Tango Analytics.
Great, thanks, Merle. So our agenda for today is that I will give you an overview of Reserve. We'll also go through the terminologies. So these are new terminologies that you can expect from the new application. And then we'll do a live demonstration of our web interface, and I'll also give you a demonstration of how to use the mobile app. Merle and I will also talk about where you can go for support and if you need help with the launch of Tango Reserve. And then we'll have some time at the end to do a Q&A and also some closing for Merle to do. So what is Tango Reserve? Tango Reserve is the workplace reservation application for reserving your workspaces at ACDI. It is the next generation for Billy. So we are currently migrating the reservations over. So in terms of how you're going to book your workspace, we're moving away from Billy and now we're implementing Reserve. And the application does provide flexibility and choice, and that's what we always want for you as users. Ultimately, we want to promote a dynamic workplace. Some terminologies that I just want to introduce you to because these are new, since Reserve is a new application. So asset would be your reservable space. So these are your workspaces that you would book whenever you want to come into the office. Check-in is the action that you would take as a user to confirm that you're going to use the space. So on the day of your reservation, you would come to reserve either through the web interface or the mobile app, and then you would perform the action to check into your reservation. And that just ensures that you're using the space and that you will have that space for the remainder of your reservation period. Grace period in minutes is the maximum time that you're given where you can perform your check-in, and it ensures that if you do check in during that grace period or before it expires, then your reservation, you'll get to keep that reservation. If you fail to check in during that grace period or before it expires, then your reservation will be canceled by the system, and we call that an auto bump. Now, an auto bump is that automatic cancellation that I mentioned, and that happens if you fail to do your check-in before the grace period expires. Just make sure that when you arrive at the office, that you do that check-in. That way you get to keep your space. And then bump is the manual cancellation that one of the admins can do if they find that there's a reservation on a space, but the user that reserved it is actually not there. They can bump that reservation to free it up, especially if there's a need for it during that time. Now, to access Reserve, there are two interfaces that you'll be able to use. One is through the web interface. So you would open a browser like Chrome or Edge. It's really to your preference. And then you would put in the URL that you see here. It's kind of long, but you also can go to Aviator SharePoint to access Reserve. It just makes it easier for you to click on the link there. For the mobile app, we do have a native app for Android and iOS phones. And you'll be able to search for the app either through the Play Store or the App Store. If you do a search for Tango Reserve by AgileQuest, this is what the app looks like, and you'll be able to make reservations and do your check-ins from there as well. All right, so let's talk about the web interface first. Now, this is the page that you'll see once you log in to Reserve. And Reserve does have single sign-on, so you just need to click on the link that will be in Aviator, and it will put you in the page for Reserve so that you can start making your reservation or do your check-in or manage your reservation at any time. So this is your homepage, and I'll walk you through what the layout of the page looks like, and then we'll go through some reservations that you can book. That way you know how to do that the next time that you come in. All right, so the first thing you'll see is down at the bottom of the main screen. You'll see that you have this kind of taskbar that shows your location. This is also where you can go in and change the date. If you want to book a different day for your reservation, you can update the time if you need to. And then you can search by list, calendar, or floor plan. So the location and the workspace, I would suggest defaulting this, and I'll show you how to do that from your profile. But once you have it defaulted, then it's really quick. It's really quick to find an available space. So the list view will give you basically all the available spaces, right? And you'll notice that some of them are labeled flex. You'll notice that some of them have names on them. But you find the space that you want to book, and then you just click on the book button. And I'll show you how to do this in a little bit. So I'm just kind of giving you a layout for now. You can also do a search by calendar, and this will provide you a list of all your spaces, and anything that's clear is available. If you see a red bar that goes across that timetable, that means that that space is reserved for that period. So for example, Tyrone has a space reserved. This space is also reserved, even though it's an open flex. And you can actually see that AQ admin, which is the account that I'm using, is the person that has that space reserved. And then the last view is the floor plan view. You'll just select the floor plan or the floor that you want to look at. So either the 10th or the 11th floor. Anything in red means it's also reserved. There's Tyrone. And then this is the space I already have reserved. Anything in green means that that space is available. So if I want to book a space for next week on the 16th, I'll do a search by floor. This space is available. And if I want to book that, I just click on that green circle. It automatically adds my name. And then here, I'm just going to click submit. And now that space is reserved for the time that I booked it for. To go back to the home page, just click on the Agile Quest logo on the top left, and it'll take you back to the main page for reserve. All right, now if you scroll down a little bit under upcoming reservations, this will list your reservations that are coming up in the future. The first 3 will appear. And if you want to look at more reservations, you have this button here for view reservations that you can click on. But one of the things that's nice is that from the homepage, you can immediately take action on some of the reservations that you have. So for today, I have a reservation from 11:30 to 7:30. I can just check in from this page. I can also check out of my reservation if I need to. If I know I'm not going to use the space that I booked for tomorrow, I can cancel the reservation, right? And then again, I can also click on the view reservation option. And this allows me to look at my reservation list in different views. There's the tile view that you are used to by now because you see that and you saw that on the other page. But you can also just have them listed in a table view if you want to modify multiple reservations. Again, click on the Agile Quest logo on the top left to go back to the home page. The next section in the homepage is the recent reservations, and this will list your past reservations. And the nice thing about this is you can copy that previous reservation. So, for example, 1054, if this is the space that I kind of like to use when I come into the office, I can just copy this previous reservation. It will copy everything about that reservation, including the name. And then all I have to do is change the date. So maybe I need this reservation for 17th next week, submit that, and now I've just made that reservation for that new day. And then the last option that you see here is the My Team section. And this is really where you can build your community of other users so that you can easily see if they have any reservations in the system. Right now, I've only added Merle, and I can see that she doesn't have any reservations for today. But if she did, that will show up here. Now, if you just want to search for other employees or other users that you may not closely work with on a day-to-day basis, so you don't necessarily want to add them to your My Team grouping, you can still search for them in the system if you go to the very top part of your page And here I'm just going to search for Tyrone. There he is. I see that he has a reservation for today. And if I click on view, I can see that he's got some reservations coming up. Now, if I do want to add Tyrone to your My Team, you can do that as well. And I'll show you how to do that from your profile. So that's kind of the main page of reserve, and I'll walk through some, other reservations. But before I do that, let me just walk you through your profile and your preferences, because you'll want to do this when you first log into reserve. That way, it just makes it easier for you to go through the process of making a reservation the next time that you have to do it. So a few things that you can update in your environment, you can add of your photo. So you saw in that last page, Merle had uploaded her picture. So in My Team, it shows her picture on there. If you don't add your picture, it's fine. It'll just show our Agile Quest logo. So to add a picture, I'll go ahead and remove this. You'll see an add photo button in reserve, and then you just go to your folder where you have your photo saved. And then here you can save that photo. Under the status message, this is where you can put in messages like, if you're going to be on PTO next week, or maybe you want to put in what your telework days are. You can put that information there, and it will show up on the My Teams page for your other users that may have added you as part of their team. The other part that you can also do is under preferences. This is where you can add your location as well as your category. Because if you don't do this, let me just take these out and I'll show you what that would look like for you. If you don't do it, it will have this where option, and that means you always have to type in some portion of your address whenever you want to book a space, right? So the trick is to default it to that location, and you'll do that from your profile under preferences. So here, just type in some portion of the address. You can even select the floor that you typically book in, and then workspace is your asset category. And then the other part of your preferences that would be good for you to also set up would be your default time preference. So I would select fix because that's you usually come in, most people do, come in at the same time every day. And so you'd want to set this to what time you typically arrive in the office. So if that's 9 a.m., great. And then what time you typically leave the office. So maybe that's 5 p.m. And then go ahead and save that. And that way it also defaults your reservations through that time. And you can always change it when you're making the reservation. But again, this defaults it to make it easier. And then while we're on this page, you also have the option to enable and disable the emails that you'll get from Reserve. So confirmation emails, it's defaulted so that you will receive that email. If you update your reservation, when your reservation is coming up, you'll also see the reminders for that. And at some point, if you don't want to receive, say, the confirmation emails, you can disable it. Just click on that do not receive radio button, and that will stop those emails from coming through. At least in the beginning, I would suggest leaving it on, and definitely leave on the reminder emails. That way you can get those reminders and you can remember to check in. Click save when you're done. And then the other options that you have for your profile, just to go through them, delegation, you can also add delegates to your profile. And the delegate in reserve basically means that you're giving permissions to someone else to make and manage reservations for you. So for example, if I want to give Tyrone the permission to make and manage reservations for me, I just add him as my delegate and save. And that means that when Tyrone logs in to reserve, if he needs to make a reservation for me, maybe we're working on a project together and we want to sit close to each other, he'll make his reservation for him, but he can also make one for me and I'll be the owner of that reservation. And if anyone has made you a delegate, you'll see those users listed here as well. And then the last part here is the My Team. This is where you saw Merle as part of my homepage in the My Team section. I can also add Tyrone here. So we're going to select his name, and then we'll display his information on my homepage as well, and then save. And now if I go to my homepage, you'll notice that my defaults are set, right? Including my default time. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see that Tyrone. I like that, Tyrone. I like the screen, the image that's been posted. So that's the information that I'll see for Tyrone. I can see his reservation, and then if he had any status information, also I would have seen that there as well. All right, let's talk about some other types of reservations. So I showed you how to make your single reservation if you just want to book for the day. So say you need to make a recurring reservation, right? So next week you're going to come in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can do that. So when you click on the date and time, you have the option to select recurring. And for the option that I just talked about, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that would be a weekly recurring. You can set it for every 1 week. So that would be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it would start on the 15th. And it'll be 9 to 5 because I've set those as my defaults. And I want to end this after 3 occurrences. Click apply. And then I can search by floor plan or by list. I find floor plans easier. And here I'm just going to look for an available space. I'm not going to book Merle's desk because that's hers, but here's an open one. So it automatically puts my name, click submit, and now I've booked my recurring reservation. Now, one of the things that Merle had also talked about is the ability for you as a user to book for someone in case you have somebody visiting from another office that doesn't have access to reserve, but they need a space in your office. Now, to do that, you would basically just book a second reservation for yourself. So say, for example, we have John Smith visiting from another location. We're expecting him to come in on the 19th from 9 to 5. Click apply. I'm just going to search by floor, right? And again, I'm going to look for an available space. So we'll select RNG Flex. Oops. Here we go. We'll select Open Flex. And here I'm going to put John Smith as a reservation name. That way it's easy to find where that person that's visiting will be sitting. And then click submit. So you would be the owner of the reservation technically, but by putting their name as the reservation name, you'll be able to tell which one is your space and which one is the space that you've booked for that other user or that other employee. Now, if you need to find spaces based on attributes, there are specific attributes that are that have been added to reserve. So take, for example, space 1003, 103. If you click on the name of the space, you can still make a reservation here, but now you'll also be able to tell what other attributes are available or the policies on this particular space. So it's an office. It tells you, for example, that it's bookable any day of the week, and that you can see what the policies are set for each of these assets. So this one, for example, is set so that you can book it up to 60 days in advance. It does require the check-in that I talked about earlier, and the grace period is set to 60 minutes. So you know when your reservation starts, remember to do that check-in 60 minutes or any time before the reservation starts, really, as long as it's on the same day. Just remember to do it before that 60-minute grace period expires, because if you don't do your check-in before that expires, then your reservation will get canceled. All right. I think those are the reservations that we wanted to cover. Let me talk about, if you need to manage your reservation. Earlier, I mentioned that you can check in. So you'll see a check-in option there. If you need to modify your reservation, you can just click on the tile. So say this reservation starts 8:30 to 4:30. I want to modify it because maybe I'm not coming in until noon that day. So I just click on the tile. Here I can change the time for when that space is reservable, and I don't need to stay until 8. So I'm just going to change that from 12 to 6. Click submit. And now I've updated the time for my reservation. All right, I think that's everything that we wanted to show on the web interface. Merle, is there anything that you want me to cover also?
Um, no, I would like you to go through the mobile apps, which I know that you're going to do.
Yep, that's coming next. All right, so let's talk about the mobile app. So like I mentioned, we do have native apps available for iOS and Android. And look for the app called Tango Reserve by AgileQuest. And then once you download it, there is an initial setup that you'll need to perform. Now, on the first page of that setup, you will be asked to select which application this is being hosted. And in your case, you would use US. And then you would also be asked the authentication flow. In your case, we have single sign-on setup, which is SAML. So that's what you would select and then click submit. The next page, you will be asked to put in the name of your reserve instance. And in your case, you would enter in ACDI. And you'll only have to do this the first time. And then you will be asked to then authenticate. Now, your authentication is through your Microsoft account. So you would sign in with your email and whatever password you use to authenticate through Microsoft. So this part, you might have to do a few times every time you log in because it just depends on when your token expires. But in terms of these two setup screens, you'll only have to do this once. Now, once you're logged in, you'll see this page. And we've designed it so that it's fairly simple for you to use when you're making a reservation and when you're managing your reservation, right? So the first thing that you'll see here is that you have the option to make a reservation. So this is when you don't have a reservation yet and you want to come into the office, you bring up your app, and then you can tap the make reservation option. And when you do that, you'll then be taken into the next screen where you would select your workspace. And then you can also put in the start time and the end time. You have some filters that you can use. So you can choose what type of office or space you want to have, and then also the floor that you want to search in. This screen is where you can select the open space to make a reservation. And then at this point, you can just click submit. And if your reservation is coming up on the same day, you'll also have the option to check in. And that just kind of completes that whole process. If you already have a reservation in reserve, you would go to manage reservation. You can check into an existing reservation from this page. You can also check out. Checkout is not required, but if you want to be nice and free up your space for somebody else, you can. You can also cancel your reservation if you know you're not going to use it. And then you can also modify your reservation. So if you tap on the tile for your reservation, you can, change the time if you need to. You can cancel it. You can move to a different space if you like. In this case, I can just change the time and then tap submit to confirm those changes. The check-in option that you see here is an express check-in, and it will check you into your reservations so they're coming up in the next 30 minutes. So if you have one of those open reservations, as soon as you tap check-in, then you'll see that reservation get checked in. And just real quick, if you're let me pause this. If your reservation is beyond 30 minutes, just click on the manage reservation option. And again, you'll still be able to check in to those reservations maybe later in the day if you go to that option. Now the floor plans, allow you to see what spaces are available or what spaces have been reserved. You can tap any of the green available spaces to make your reservation. So here I've selected the 1003 flex space. I then set the time for when I want my reservation to begin, and then I can click submit, and that creates the reservation for me. So you have different options there. And then the last option here is my profile. You can change your picture if you like, but you can also come in here and change your preference. Up on the top right, you see a magnifying glass. That's where you can search for other people. So in this case, if I want to see where Merle is sitting from my phone, I can just tap her name and then look at her reservations. And again, I can use this especially if I want to work closely to, where Merle is sitting. Maybe we're working on a project together. And then the three dots that you see there on the top right, you have the option to move to different parts of the application, or you can also log out. So it's laid out very simply by design to allow you to make those quick tasks that you need to do in Reserve. So a few reminders as we are nearing the end of our demo. Your access to Reserve will begin on January 22nd. The mobile app access, just to remind you, you can download the app through the Play Store or the App Store. The bookings in Billy are being honored until January 26th, and the Tango reservations are active starting January 29th. So Merle, it looks like the users will have early access so they can plan out their reservations after January 26th, but they're not being required to check in. Oops, they're not being required to check in until after the 29th.
Correct.
And then in terms of where you can go for resources and support, you can contact office operations if you have any questions about the application. For technical assistance, we're asking you to contact the help desk. And then there's more information that will be available in Aviator SharePoint, including the link to access Reserve. All right. Any questions, Merle, Tyrone?
I had one question and one thing I wanted to confirm or be sure of. One question is, how many can you add to your team?
Good question. So, Merle, you're talking about this part here. You can have as many users as you want added in the team. If you have the first three will show kind of the top row, any other users will show below that. But if you have a team of 5 people, you can add every member in your team there. That way you can view very easily where they might be sitting or their, what reservations they have in the system. Yep, there's no limit on how many people you can add.
Okay, thanks. My other is the grace period. You said it's 60 minutes. So does that mean if select that I will be here at 9, that I have until 10 a.m. to check in?
That's correct, right. Now,
Okay.
if you get there early, like say you made your reservation to start at 9, but you got there at 8:30, you can still check into your reservation.
Okay.
The only thing that you have to remember is that you have to do it by 10, which is 60 minutes after the scheduled start time that you selected.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions. I don't know if you have any, Tyrone.
Yes. Um, my question is in the recurring reservations, do I need to check in if I already reserved my office for that week? Do I need to check in every day? Or because I have it recurring, if I check in that Monday, that covers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday?
That is a great question. So you are required to check in to every recurrence of your recurring reservation. So if your reservation is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like in my example, on Monday, you would check in if you're going to use your space. Wednesday and Friday, if you're coming in, then you'll also need to check in. Now, if Monday you didn't check in. Maybe you were sick, right? And you weren't going to be in the office anyway. Hopefully, you got a chance to cancel your reservation. That's what we would want you to do. But on Monday, you're sick, you're not even thinking about going into the system to cancel it. If since you don't check in, your reservation will automatically get canceled, but you'll still have your reservation in there for Wednesday and Friday. So on Wednesday, you're feeling better, you come in, you'll see your reservation in there. At that point, you can check in. Friday, the same thing. That reservation will still be there, and then you can check into the reservation if you are going to use it on that Friday.
All right. And my second question is, we can make multiple reservations for other employees and team. Is there a limited amount that I can make reservations for another people like you expressed in the video? If we have overseas employees or out of town employees coming in, how many spaces can I reserve for that team or group of people that may be coming in?
Sure. So for your end users, I believe Merle is putting in a business rule that your end users can book up to 2 spaces. So that would mean that they can book one for themselves and another one for an employee that's not part of reserve. Now, if this employee that you're trying to make a reservation for is actually in the system as a user, then it would be good to use the delegate permissions instead, because when you're making a reservation for one of the users who you have been made a delegate for, it doesn't count against your 2, right? Because they are the owner for that reservation. The 2 is really for yourself and anyone else that might be traveling to your office that's not a user in the reserve system.
Thank you.
To add to that, the the number can be increased on how many visitor spaces that you need to reserve for it. So that can be changed at any time. That is flexible, but just to start out, I thought 2 would be best.
All right. Any other questions that you guys can think of?
Yeah, just one more question. When you did the instructions on either app or we could log into a URL web page, do I need to use a username and log in when I use that link to log in? If I don't go through the Aviator or Microsoft Teams, do I need to use a login username and password if I go through the URL web page?
Oh, the web page. No. So whenever you go through the web page, let me go to that. This URL, the long URL, this is your SAML single sign-on URL. So once you get into this page, you don't need a reserve email and password to log in. You would log in with your Microsoft credentials.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let me bring up the reminder page. That way we can go through that and we can do the closing. So again, access will begin on January 22nd. Remember to download the app, and then there is that setup that I covered earlier on, that you'd only have to do one time. And that your Billy reservations are good until the 26th. Just remember to log in to reserve starting on the 22nd so you can book your reservations starting January 29th and beyond. And then on the 29th, just remember that you would need to check into your reservations, and you can use either the web interface or the mobile app to do that. Anything to add, Merle?
No, I just again thank everyone for watching the training and demo. And again, if you have any questions, In reference to reserving space, you can reach out to office operations at acdivoca.org. And if you have any technical questions, you can send an email to the help desk at acdivoca.org. And you can refer to Aviator on SharePoint if you for resources on using Tango Reserve.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.